Welcome to Kira Gets Real Estate. This episode, we are very excited to have a guest, so stay tuned. I just wanted to start with welcoming you and reminding you that I am not an attorney and I am not a tax professional, so I cannot give legal or tax advice. And if you're currently working with an agent, meaning you are listed with an agent or have a buyer agreement signed with the buyer's agent, you are already represented, and so I cannot answer specific questions about your situation. However, on this podcast, we like to answer questions about real estate, of course, some random questions, and we want to build up our communities. And that includes sometimes having guests that can help you in one way or another. In this episode, we're going to talk about different ways for buyers to get some extra cash when they need it for closing. First is seller concessions. Now, this name is very confusing because it sounds like the sellers are conceding something. Um, Ultimately, it's really a legal way for the buyer to borrow additional funds to pay their own closing costs. The seller ultimately isn't really conceding anything. For example, if you say there's a house that is listed for $300,000, you make an offer for $300,000, but you ask for 6% concessions. That 6%, so that $18,000 would actually not go to the seller. It would go to your closing costs. And so the seller, I just made this math really hard in my head. The seller would actually view that offer as $282,000. Did I do that math right? Because that's all they would get. The $18,000 would go to your closing costs, and that's all done on paper. The seller doesn't give you money. It's just when the attorneys are calculating what you need to bring to the table to close your loan, that $18,000 gets shifted from the seller side to your side, and that goes towards your down payment, towards any closing costs you have in terms of funding your escrow account, all of the costs that are associated with you getting the mortgage. It goes towards your cash to close. So that can be a huge help for buyers where cash is tight. Now, a seller may say, well, I listed my house for $300,000. I'm not taking your offer for $282,000. That's ridiculous. You can say, okay, well, I will offer you $310,000 and then you get $292,000, right? So you can adjust it so that they can still get what they want and you can still get what you want. And so I tell, whether it's buyer or seller, I let everybody know, look, if you get an offer or make an offer that has concessions in it, make sure that you're negotiating on the net on what the seller is actually going to get. So if the seller gets an offer that 282, right, and they say, well, no, my bottom line is 290. Okay, so then we counter the offer and say, look, the seller was going to get 282. Their bottom line is 290. You can come up to that and add your concessions on top to make it work on your side, but that's, where the seller's at. So that way nobody's confused about what is actually being paid for the house itself. The additional money on top of it, the concessions, is just for your closing costs. And so really there's not a lot of harm from the seller side in accepting an offer with concessions. Really the biggest possible challenge, it's not always a challenge, but it can be, is if the house doesn't appraise high enough. So in a situation where, say, the seller agreed to accept the 282 on the house that's listed at 300, right? And the financing is based on the 300 because remember, the buyer is borrowing extra to pay their closing costs. So the house has to appraise based on a price of 300 because the lender is lending on a price of 300, right? So they're protecting their asset, and the house has to appraise showing that the value is there in case it was foreclosed on and the lender had to sell it. So there have been situations where the appraisal happens, and let's say the house appraises it 295, right? And it had to appraise at 300. In that situation, we have a problem because the seller is saying, well, I'm only getting 282. So I don't care that it only appraised at 295. It's still higher than what I'm getting, right? And the buyer might need to either adjust what they're asking for in terms of concessions, or they may need to adjust their financing in some way to make it work. In that situation, the seller is not likely to take less because now they have essential proof that it's worth more than they're actually getting. So the appraisal situation can be a little bit tricky with concessions, but not always. And usually that only happens if you're like going above and beyond the list price. So if you are saying, well, I will offer you $318,000 and I want $18,000 in concessions so that you, Mr. Seller, get 300, that is more likely to become an appraisal issue versus just using it as a negotiating tool. Like maybe the house has been on the sale on the market for a few months and the seller's like, well, yeah, I was going to negotiate anyway, so I'm happy with 282 and they can borrow the difference and what have you. Right. So it is a way that has been used for a long time for the buyers to need less cash out of pocket at closing to get to the closing table. Now, during COVID years, late 2020, 21, even into 22, where things were super competitive, we saw a lot less seller concessions being accepted in an offer because sellers really didn't have to. They had better, more qualified offers on the table, so they didn't have to accept an offer with concessions. They might have had 2 cash offers and a conventional offer. But now we're starting to see it come back, and it's a pretty normal thing, especially in the market I'm in. It's very common. So I expect that to continue. Another option to get some cash, and this is actually free money, is so our state association is the New York State Association of Realtors. NYSAR is the acronym. We have a foundation, the Housing Opportunities Foundation, and we give grants of $2,000 twice a month. So there's 2 winners each month, and it's free money to use towards your closing costs. You have to be under contract when you apply. And I am very fortunate today to have Kalen Raynor, who is with the Long Island Board of Realtors. She has she's been in real estate for 26 years, which is amazing because she's super young. And she has served in leadership roles throughout the Long Island Board of Realtors and also through our state association, NYSAR. And she is currently our 2025 Housing Opportunities Foundation chairperson. So I'm really honored to have her here today to share a little bit more about what the foundation offers. And if you're an agent, how you can, help your clients in this way. And if you are a buyer, how you can benefit from this great program. Thank you so much for being here, Kalen, and glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So I think this grant program is just a really wonderful resource that we offer to our communities. And I'm excited to kind of share with everybody a little bit more about it. I know, you and I are familiar with it, and a lot of people that, are really involved at our state association are familiar with it. But I think it's good to get the word out
I
to
totally agree
other
because
agents and stuff.
so many people can benefit from this and just don't know about it, and we try to promote it as much as we can, but it's really a hard thing to do. So
Absolutely.
and the actual application is not hard at all.
Yeah.
I about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So can you give me a little bit of background on the grant program?
Sure. So the grant program is a wonderful program that is run through NYSAR. We give out grants throughout the year. The program is wonderful because you can use it for closing costs and or a down payment. It's actually very easy to get, and it's $2,000 is the grant amount that every person that can apply can possibly win.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I actually did have a buyer. I've had a number of buyers apply, but I did have a buyer get the grant, and it was a huge help.
Really nice to see at the end of the year too. Through the foundation, we have invited some of the grant recipients back. And to learn how much, $2,000 really helped them. I know
Yeah,
it's not a huge amount, but it is a great amount to put down towards your closing costs. And every little bit helps when you're trying to buy your first house.
for sure. Absolutely. Most buyers today are really tight on costs.
When I bought mine, I did a seller's concession. So my first house,
Yeah, absolutely.
every little bit helps for
Yeah.
sure.
So who can apply for the grant?
Anyone that is working with a realtor can apply once they're fully in contract.
Perfect. So if you're watching this and if you're an agent, just know that if a buyer reaches out to you asking for your NERDS number, they need that for the application, right? So that's why. And if you're a buyer, know that if you're working with a realtor, that you can apply for this grant and see if you can get some free money, which is wonderful.
Yes, 100%. And like I said, once you're in contract, then you can apply. But it's a really simple process. You just go online, you submit an application. And the way that it is chosen is by a lottery system. So, it's just the luck of the draw when you put it in there. It's a really, really neat program. And we do so many fundraisers throughout the year to try to raise money for it so that we can give out as many as we can. And so far, they've given out $650,000 worth of grants. So that's amazing.
That
That's
is amazing. Wow. Um, so I know you mentioned fundraising for funding the grant,
yes.
but if somebody wanted to just make a donation, I know agents often make donations and brokers, and can anybody
100%.
make a
We'll take
donation?
all donations. No, there's many banks that have donated, many boards. Go to your local association and ask them to put it on as a line item for the year, and definitely donate to NYSAR, to the Housing Foundation. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. We also do a couple of fundraisers throughout the year. We have the giveaway that we give out at the NYSAR events, the business meetings, and usually that's like a laptop or something like that that we've raised money for. But we also have our Champagne and Diamonds fundraiser that's been fantastic over the years. So it's really great because everyone that does donate really does it because they were once in that position, to buy their first house. And, every little bit, like we were saying, everything helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun. Like I've been to the Champagne and Diamonds fundraiser a number of years, and it's fun to participate too, not just like, yes, you're donating, but it's nice to be a part of it. And so look out for those events, definitely, if you're watching and part of NYSAR for sure.
There's one thing that some people may not know about applying for the grant too. They can get a second chance, like an extra entry, if they take a first time home buyer workshop. So when you submit the
Awesome.
application, there will be a question there. And if you do have that, then you have two entries for that month.
Wow,
Um,
so doubles your odds.
Yep. And also, I believe that if you don't get it, let's say, and you're still in contract, you could reapply for the next month's drawing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
definitely keep that in mind too, because maybe you didn't get it that time, but it does take about, at least out by me, it takes about 60 days to close.
Yeah, us too. Yeah.
Two chances possibly.
Right, which is great for sure. And w- are there any restrictions in terms of like income limits, that type of thing?
There are income limits. I actually have a whole chart. I mean, I don't know if you'd like me to choose any of those, but there are certain income limits. Honestly, when you're in a first time home buyer situation, you're probably going to apply. You're probably going to be acceptable into it.
Yeah. Okay.
Based on the limits, definitely. Unless you're buying a multi-million dollar house as your first
Sure.
house, and hopefully everyone has that problem. But
That's right. Exactly. Absolutely. Then somebody else can have the $2,000. Excellent.
just such a good program, and really everyone, even every single person that's working with a local realtor should apply.
Yeah.
Why not? What's the harm? You don't get it, you don't get it. But and hopefully you can get your community involved to donate more funds so that we can give it to more people every month.
Excellent. No, that's great. Any other tidbits or anything else you'd like to share about it?
It's just been a wonderful ride being the president. I've been involved with the Housing Foundation for many years. Every year, doing secretary, treasurer, different things. But it's just a wonderful organization, and I just think that being a realtor, I see it every single day. And honestly, some of the best clients that we work with are first time home buyers because they really truly want that house, and it's just amazing that we're able to give that to them and just help them out any way we can.
Yeah, I agree. It's very heartwarming. It's nice to see people help people get into their first home for sure.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on today.
Yeah, I truly appreciate it. It's been great.
And I'm sure I will see you soon at the upcoming NYSAR meetings for sure. Um, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season and take care.
You too. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye-bye. Well, I hope you all learned something about the grant program. It really is an amazing thing that we're able to offer. If you are interested in learning more, if you're interested in donating, it is a nonprofit foundation. So there's a tax benefit to donating. But if you're interested in learning more, if you go to NYSAR, so NYSAR housingfoundation.com, and that's where the application is, and there's information about it. You can learn more about it there. So if you're an agent, that's a great link to have to give to buyers when they're going under contract. And if you're a buyer, it's a great link to have to check out the grant program. It also does have the income requirements there. Like Kalen said, most people do fall into those requirements. But if you're wondering, it's a great way to check it out and find out. Thanks so much for joining me today, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon on the next episode. If you have any real estate questions that you're dying to get answered online, please go to my website, KiraWitherwax.com, and shoot us the information, the question, and we will get it answered for you. Take care.